Hi, welcome everyone. So we're here in the new episode of our podcast. I have the pleasure today to be with Raman and Sumrita from Conlis Global. Welcome together.
Thank you,
Thank you, Jeremy.
Jeremy.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, so I'm very excited to have you guys on board this podcast today because together what we're really going to go through is we're really going to go through the basic process for every medical device company when they need to develop their product, starting from R&D to commercialization of the product. We're going to see each of the different individual steps, and we're going to try to have you guys share your expertise and experience on that process. So, but before starting on that, I just want to have a little bit more background about you guys. We're going to start with you, Samrina. Um, so you founded, and you both like together like a founder of Conlis Global. Can you just share a little bit more about like your background, your story? How did you ended up creating this company?
Sure. Thank you so much, Jeremy, for this opportunity. So, I started my research journey by I have my bachelor's in microbiology, master's in microbiology, and then I wanted to do a PhD which would be meaningful to society. So, I was looking for opportunities here and there for PhD. Uh, in microbiology, I did have few options, but thought may not be very productive. So I wanted to do something which society would need in future. So I did my PhD from one of the most renowned institutions in back in India. It's called Indian Institute of Technology. So their focus is majorly technology innovation oriented. So I got a lot of exposure experience in terms of how you would get innovations done, how you would build your experiments, and a lot of exposure, I would say an international exposure in research and development. So I did my PhD in regenerative medicine and tissue engineering, and my major focus was in the repair of bone and cartilage. And then from my PhD, I did my postdoctoral from University of Calgary. And after that postdoctoral, I also did one more MyTax industrial postdoctoral fellowship in point of care devices. And that is where I met Dr. Raman, where he was heading the industry, and I was from a university. So it was an industry and university collaboration. So that industry exposure gave me a very strong understanding of how industries work, because we were a very small startup company, and we had to start everything from scratch. It gave me an understanding of quality management systems. It gave me an understanding about how a product is developed, what are things those we do not think in R&D, those we have to think when you're manufacturing the product. And then eventually, as I had a experience in R&D, I did my RAP certification, and then I thought I had some ideas in my mind from my PhD, and I wanted to kind of go into the entrepreneurial journey and explore more into medical device areas. So that's how Conlis came into picture.
That sounds good. So we're going to dive like very quickly about like what your company is doing. But before, I just want to ask Raman, on your side, what was like your experience and background before you met with Samrina as well?
Yeah, thank you, Jeremy, again for having me. Um, so my background is very similar to what Sumrita's background is. We come from academia. I did my doctorate in molecular biology from New Mexico State University in New Mexico, US. And during that journey was basic research, no exposure to entrepreneurship or any kind of industry. However, during my you know professional growth, I did some postdoc at IIT Kanpur, where Sumrita was at the same institute, and also some postdoctoral experience in Connecticut. Um, and that was kind of a little exposure where we saw how research labs are now looking at the market and identifying gaps and making products for that. That was, I think, our first initial exposure for that. For that time we spent as a postdoc, we came to Canada. I found a entrepreneur who was in medical field and didn't had any experience but had money to put in, and I joined hand him with him to establish my first journey, independent journey on medical device, taking R&D products to commercialization, and that was, I think, a decade back. That's how I started, and during that journey, I was fortunate enough to meet Sumrita, and she joined the team, and we took that product out from lab to the regulatory pathway to the commercialization to the market. And that gave us confidence initially to see that, okay, yeah, we know the path, we have carved our path. Why don't we start our own, technology, what we have worked so hard during our PhDs and postdocs? And that was purely a intellectual discussion as well as a business outlook, identifying gaps which we have done for somebody else. Now we'll do it for ourselves, and that's the sum of our journey.
Okay, so tell us like a little bit more about like I mean, we understand like your background, your expertise. Like let's just focus about like your company, like what's your activity, what you guys do, the vision and the expertise that you provide.
So Conlis basically has two wings, I would say. One is a service wing, and another is innovation wing. Because we are innovators, we have our own technologies, those we want to bring to the market. So from the service wing side, uh, to go back and think why did I create this service? Being in the research area, I always feel that there's a huge gap between R&D and the commercialization that we're going to discuss more in detail. So, based on the current statistics, 0.1% of the products, those are made in the lab, make it to the market. So,
Mm.
where are rest of the products going? That's a huge number that is missing the mark of hitting the market. So, what I realized, being in the research labs for over decade or more than that, I realized that there's a huge gap where R&D people, the people who do R&D, are not aware of what are the downstream processes after you have made a product. We will make a most innovative product on the earth, but we don't know how to put that product in the market. And what Conlis is doing, we're trying to bridge that gap. We're trying to educate researchers onto what is QMS. How would you manufacture product? How would you make your product manufacturable? Because again, there are logistic issues there on how is your product manufacturable or not. So that is the service wing of Conlis, where we are helping other researchers in understanding how to bridge a gap between R&D and manufacturing. And second is our innovation, where we have our regenerative products, like the products we have worked through my PhD, my postdoctoral, and Raman also has worked on a few of those projects. We are putting those products to the market. So our first lead product is it's a world's first nanotechnology based nano cement. So it is a bone wide filler which can be used for I would say it's an innovative bone wide filler which has a capability of enhancing bone healing, and it has a huge competitive edge by being antibiotic eluting kind of a bone wide filler. So that's what at Conlis we do. And in addition to the nano cement, we do have almost 15 other products in this area which we are planning to put it in the market.
Amazing. So I can't wait to I mean to ask like many questions about like the product development process. I would say again, this is what we want. Like the topic and the focus of this interview is really try to provide like a pretty general guideline, I would say, with recommendation, feedback, your feedback on each of the steps of the process. So let's start with the beginning. So if you were to advise any medical device startup on the field, can you just describe, like the key steps that they need to follow in order to go from R&D of their medical device to the commercialization? What's the different key steps? And then we dive into each of those.
I guess I can take that one. So in any journey, like, I will always paint this picture to anybody who is starting on this journey. Is like, hey, you bought a house, now you need to fill this with furniture. what will you do? You will
Mm.
hop places, you will look at the prices, have different specification match. This is exactly, you don't have to go anywhere else. You just have to do your due diligence. So the steps will be discovery phase. You're going out and seeing what is close to me. If I want to buy a TV, do I go to Best Buy? Do I go to, some other store? Where do I find the best deals? That's a discovery phase. You're not buying it yet, but you're just discovering it. Second is your developmental phase. Okay, now you identified three stores, but now you want to dive deep and look at the specifications. Are this TV compatible to me? Is my budget allowing me? Right? So that's how the second developmental phase is, where you will talk to the manager or the store salesperson, ask more questions and see the match. Third will be regulatory and compliance. Well, do I have plugs to power this TV if I get it home? Do I need 5 ampere plug? Do I need 30 ampere plug? That's the regulatory and compliance. That's the third step of any medical device, specifically talking pathway. And the fourth will be essentially scale up and manufacturing. Can I have space if I want more TVs? And if I put this TV on the wall, can I put two another TVs if I have more guests? Can I have additional screens? So that's the manufacturing and scale up, the last step, where you will buy a product which is compatible with your wall, so that if when the time comes and you want to expand it, can you expand it or not? So in a layman's language, I just kind of explained like four major steps of you putting an idea and getting it to the manufacturing.
I love the example of the TV, but just to make sure that we clarify everything here, we're talking about medical device. But I love the example of the TV
Of
to see.
course.
So let's start with from the beginning. So discovery phase. Okay, so you mentioned the discovery phase. Can you dive a little bit more in these steps to try to describe, like what need to be done at that stage?
Absolutely, absolutely. So it's the most critical phase, I would say, because it is a gate where you say go or no go for any entrepreneur. You don't spend too much money, but you will spend a lot of time understanding your own product, understanding market need. So if I have to, explain discovery phase essentially has 7 to 8 sub steps. First step will be your market research. As I explained with the example of TV, in a medical device, you really want to see what is your market feasibility. That
Just, Raman, just sorry on this one. That means that basically before the market research, we're talking about a company that already have identified the science. I mean, that they want to focus on. They have a solution to a specific problem, and they basically going to verify if they have a market. Right? That's the way it is, or is that before?
no, so it's way before, because you don't even want to develop something which there is no need for. So why will you do R&D? It will
Okay.
be waste. So even before you start R&D, you touch any pipettes, any flask, any beaker in the lab, you ask yourself a question. The idea I have to develop X drug or X medical device, um, uh, X therapy, X treatment, is it sought out? Will people buy it? Will my uh, buyer or a pair, which can be hospitals, will buy it or not? Is there any need? Because if you make something which is unique but is very expensive, it's gonna it's dead, because it's so expensive that only few people can buy it, and the effort and energy it takes to make it, it's not sustainable. So market feasibility is the first where you should be focusing on, which is my idea practical,
Mm.
or am I just thinking putting a wings on a car and it will fly? It
Mm.
shouldn't be, it shouldn't be fairy tale. It should be very practical. And then, what is my market size? If I launch this product, will I get my revenue back? Because essentially, in any business, it's your passion, but it's also game of money. You have to be sustainable to stay in the market. So, what is your market size? Is it worth investment? Second will be your acceptance. If I make a car for XYZ, I made this medical device. Will that hospital, that patient, that buyer pay for it? Is this addressing their pain points? So acceptance, because I can make something which is, for example, for diabetes, I have one option which is wireless, and one is which I have to put needles down in my skin. So acceptance of those two products are different. Somebody will go with wireless because it's not painful, and the acceptance of the needle when you have two products, it's very different. So you have to think of that. The product you're making, is it acceptable? Third will be market positioning. Now I give you an example of diabetes. It's the same thing. Am I making it for type 1, type 2? So even in diabetes, you have subgroups of market which you need to pinpoint. Who is going to buy this? Is it the type 2 patients, type 1 patients, or both? So you have to be very clear from start. What are you product making and who are you making for?
Mm.
Then once I do all this work, I need to now know, how do I reach them? I identified, okay, I'm going to be reaching to type 2 diabetes. Now, how do I reach them? Should I reach them through pharmacies? Should I reach them through doctors they're seeing? Or should I reach them through social media, hospitals? What will be my marketing channels? So you don't have to be really comprehensive, but have some idea how you're going to be reaching, because that is going to shape your product. And then, of course, you will think about what value proposition you're bringing, because you're not the first one in diabetic or medical device field. There will be competitors. So you have to see, how are you different than your competitors? What is your value proposition? So that's essentially the market research you have to do. Then comes identification of payers, buyers, or users. Is your business B2B, business to business? Am I selling it directly, making it and selling it to hospitals? That's B2B. Or is it B2C, that I will be putting it on a website and people will go and buy it? That's B2C, business, to consumers. Or is a hybrid model, B2B and B2C. I can be doing both. So have that idea, because that will, uh, the aesthetics of the product, the value proposition of the product is dependent on all those things.
Mm.
Uh, then is identification of pain points. What I mean by that is, you have to do your market research again. Go and talk to, if you're making something for diabetes, since we picked up an example of diabetes, I will go to an endocrinologist who is seeing patients. I will ask him questions. Hey, what is your dream product? What would you want to see in that dream product? And that will give me gaps in the market, because that endocrinologist will give me points which he sees is not available in the market, and he says, you know what, my patients will be really happy if I had something which is remotely monitored, and which will give me a beep when I'm low or I'm high on my blood sugar. That will be wonderful. Or I can send reports directly to my doctor. Those are the, now it gave me something. Hey, the product I'm making, do I have this? So it is gathering end users pain point. So that is very important. So talk to your key opinion leaders, talk to the champions of your product who are going to be using them, and talk to the agencies who are going to be promoting them: hospitals, urgent cares, family doctors, or the institutes. If it is made for purely research, for academia, then go and talk to those institutes, if you're making something for that. And one of the um, underrated is the human capital. Any entrepreneur, they always see market research, investors, business, all that. But it's very important also to see, do you have enough skilled human capital?
Mm.
I'm a researcher, but do I understand business? If I don't, then I need to get somebody on my team who does understand business, because you need that direction. Do I have enough technical staff? Because if I'm going to be developing this product, do they have enough knowledge to develop this product? Do I have business developers? Because as you're developing business or product,
You need to sell
those
it.
guys will be pitching or setting your platform up. And then this is essentially what I will say, main main subcategories of discovery phase. If you are all checked on all these, your market research, your identification of end users, your identification of end user pain points, and human capital, I think you're good. Other three which you have to be considerate is look at your budgets, because you cannot move forward if you don't have money or funding. So you need to calculate how much it's going to take to do all these activities, and then also commercial compatibility. I would say my personal experience was whatever I have done so far in entrepreneur journey. I always pick up a phone, call potential manufacturer, and ask him, "Hey, this is my idea. I want to patent it, or I have patented it. Will you be able to manufacture it?" Because you have to see manufacturing compatibility from start. Otherwise, you will develop a product and nobody can manufacture it. Again, it's dead. So I think that's a due diligence you have to do. Of minute things like supply chain and risk assessment is part of it, but it doesn't overweigh rest of it. I would say the six main points, market research, identification, human capital, funding, and compatibility is much more important.
At which point do you go to look for funding? Is that before the beginning of that phase, or is that like at the end of that phase when you have like a better idea, but like you make sure that you check like all the box of the feasibility of your product? That's at that point in time.
That's a very excellent point, Jeremy, and I think Sumrita is well equipped to answer this. But I'll put my 2 cents, and then let Sumrita add on any points. Once you do market research, any funding agency may be. I'm talking about North America here. If you're going to any non diluting funding, which is academia funded or provincial funded or federally funded grants, they want to see your business plan. They want to see you have done whatever I described as a market research. You have done that market research, and you know what you're doing. And if we give you money, we give you $1 million, they know it's not going to go to waste, because you have done your due diligence in seeing there is a market, there is a need, and the idea you have, it is manufacturable.
Mm.
So at that point, when you check all those market research points and you check the compatibility, funding is the last one. You compile all this together, and then you approach different funding agency. If you're making a digital solution, a software, then you apply for those grants which are software oriented, digital health oriented. If it is medical device, then you have different grants. So you should also know the ecosystem for your funding. But Sumrita, if I miss something, please add on.
Thank you, Raman. No, I think you hit it at the point where most required. But in addition, I think in addition to the business standpoint, of course, that it's very important to know your market before you put your money there. But funding agencies also look at if you have some kind of proof of concept, right? They won't fund your research without having confidence that this product is it's going to work, right? So initial proof of concept is very, very important, and that connects us to the second point, where we call as a development stage or development phase, where we have couple of points that we discuss in future. So proving your concept with an initial pilot scale experiments would be important in addition to doing a market research.
Yeah, I want to clarify that. So once you have your business plan, and I think like, it's interesting to get your feedback as well on that point, because I know that in Canada there's like a lot of grants which are available for medical device companies. Um, do, what's is that the easiest way for a startup in that field to just go for a grant first in order to be able to develop the technology, and then basically after go to see some angels, VCs, to get like that kind of like money to fuel the growth and maybe like finish like the product? How does that work? Is really grants like typically like the first stage that we see?
Yes, I would say I would highly recommend every startup to go, first of all, I would say consume all your non-dilutive sources of funding so that you're not diluting your company. That is also very, very important. Few companies, what they will do, if you will start, imagine if you start from VC and angel investors, you are trying diluting yourself at way before you have even developed a product. So because in Canada we have a lot of federal and provincial fundings, those fund R&D projects. So very very important. Try to make sure that you have used all the non-dilutive fundings. Once you have a proof of concept, once you have a product ready, and once you're at a stage where you think you have I would say a viable minimum viable product MIP, then you go to investors, because if you are going with an idea to investor, it's very hard to get any kind of funding from either VCs or angel investors.
Amazing. Okay, so let's dive now on the development phase then to get that MVP. What's the different steps? Yeah, what's the different feedback? If you can share your insights.
Raman, do you want to start or you?
I can start, but I think this is much more
Okay. Yeah.
Sumrita's forte.
Yeah.
So I would say the second development phase is once you have done your market research, it's kind of again going back to example of TV, which we started out. You wouldn't buy a TV which is larger than your wall, right? You will take dimensions and then appropriately buy the TV the size you want. It's the same thing. You develop a blueprint of your experiments, what experiments you have to do to reach to idea to end product MVP, and that is your rough draft of a product and experiments. That gives you just a pathway, a roadmap. Things will change, and this is very critical, and I think this is where we should spend more time in developmental phase discussing this, because that's where a lot of companies just wind up their shop and say, you know what, we are done, we're not going to move forward because of the mistakes they do, and the time they take to reach to a specific goal. So I would just say do your blueprint initially, have your team you hired, in the first step. You identified your skill set, technical, business, your who is going to be ordering stuff. You have delegated roles to your team members, and you have delegated role for yourself also, that what are you seeing, what are you overseeing, how are you contributing towards that project, what are my timelines. So I think that is the first step, is design of experiments. And I think Sumrita is well, she was director of operations, and she can put some more light on this.
Yeah, thank you, Raman. So, as Raman mentioned, design of experiment will be the first important, very, very important point. And then, going back to my research time, we never ever think quality control is so important. But I would say QC is one of the key points, right? So, if I'm running an experiment, I'm getting I'm just giving an example. I'm getting a result of 8 in one. My reading is 8 in one experiment, and my reading in the next experiment, my reading is 6 or 5 or 3 or 2. From an R&D standpoint, it doesn't make any difference if your QCs are not tightly controlled. But if you are building a product which is to be approved by FDA, Health Canada. This is a very, very important point. And right now, the groups we are working with, major struggle that we have is having tight QCs. So R&D, we have to make sure that your QCs are tight enough, and you have a clear understanding what your QCs are. If you're saying that my QC, my reading has to be 5, it has to be 5 every single time you hit, if you every single time you do your experiment. So that would be one thing. And other thing which I think I did hit that, I did kind of go over that in our initial introduction, is QMS. Many researchers, I would say 80% researchers, do not know what QMS is. Quality management system have no idea, because we don't do QMS in R&D. We do not have that tracking of documents from the thinking phase, where you ideate where you have an ideation phase, to the development phase, to regulatory. We do not have any track record of how your thoughts were, what is your literature survey, from where you got an idea. We don't do that. So that is second thing that we have to be very very clear, that you
So,
built your
so
strong QMS.
So
Yeah,
here you recommend to basically implement that quality management system pretty early phase instead of
early on. Yes,
like too late in the process. What's the
yes.
do you, because I see like a lot of companies using I mean sometimes like just like Excel, Word to do like the job. Do you recommend like to deploy directly like a full quality management software, or those type of tools are good for starting, I would say, as long as you have like the quality management process implemented?
I would highly recommend companies, or I would even say R&D groups, to have some kind of a software which can align their
Mm,
quality management system, because as you know, it's a lot of work, and if you want to manage it, there has to be a single person who manages all of it, and having a QMS software would ease up many things those people have to do manually. That can be done by using a software. Yeah, I highly recommend it.
sounds good. Sounds good.
Yeah, so building your QMS, and that would, like, core of QMS is you are increasing your efficiency, and you're making sure that you're not putting anything to the waste. You are, what your research you're doing, you're making sure that that goes to the manufacturing. And then would be, as we were discussing, if you follow all these steps, your design of experiment is proper, your QC checks are proper, you're building your QMS, you get your prototype, right? You are now following a path to a prototype. That is what is the minimum viable product, or a prototype, working prototype. And then other consideration that is very, very important, which many R&D people do not think through, is costing, right? When you go to the market, if your product is $100 versus already existing product is $90, you are not going to make any profit. You're not going to make your sales are not going to go up unless your product is really, really, either it is cost effective, or it is something that is kind of breakthrough kind of a technology. So costing is important, and while we are making all those, while we are running, or maybe while we are making a prototype, we need to make sure we have a consideration on those, and we also have a consideration on our supply chain, right? Where are we getting the parts from? Are they compliant? Or do we have we done supplier evaluation, compliance, and other feedback from the supplier? um, and then we also have an important consideration on validation of your design performance or user interface. Like Raman was talking about the diabetic device that we have. Have you tried to run interface studies by using, maybe with the clinics or with the patients, onto how the patient would interact with your device? So important consideration there. And then I think, Raman, do you want to quickly touch on the scale up compatibility, um, things that, like, how your R&D should
Sure,
be compatible with?
sure. And you know, uh, I just wanted to also add few points to what Sumrita has already said. Uh, she mentioned having control over logistics and supplies, and quite often people don't pay attention. If a company is giving you a piece of plastic, for example, which you're using to make a medical device for $10, and some other company gave you for $8, you just move. But in that process, you screwed up your whole experiment, because I was 50% experiment done with one plastic type, and now I change. I'm giving you an example. Now I
Mm.
change the component. Your results will be different. So you have to control all your material and supply from get go. So it's that's the first step when we say design of experiments. That's where you have to evaluate: am I using chemicals which are analytical grade or molecular grade? You have to be very clear, because it all ties up to your regulatory. If FDA wants you to use higher grade, which is molecular grade, then don't use analytical grade, because that's only for doing a typical academic research, which is not for commercialization. But for commercialization, you need certificates that this chemical is safe, it has been tested. You have to have that trail of paperwork when you submit it to FDA, or for even for manufacturing, that this is a compound which is good quality, approved quality, and is compliant. So that's one of the things which people don't pay attention, and they end up doing all their prototyping, and at the very end, FDA says, well, you didn't use the proper chemical. So all that time and energy and money is wasted, and again they have to restart the whole process.
Can,
So
can you touch on, sorry Raman, can you touch on like the to be like a little bit more extensive on what's the main cause of failure? So we understood that specific point, but what do you see typically like with all the different startups that you follow when failing the development of their product?
yes, in each phase, we spoke about discovery phase. So there are failure points there too. So I will just really quickly touch on that and then come to the developmental phase. So in discovery phase, if you don't, as we said, if you're making a hammer for a nail which doesn't exist, it's not going to hit anything.
Mm,
So be realistic. Be realistic in what you're developing. Be very truthful to your own and your team that you see a need, not just because you want to make it. You want to make it because there is a need. That's very important point. So second thing is, you can make I can make a laptop which can have 10 screens, but is it too complicated for users to even buy? Just looking at that, people will say, you know what, that's too complicated. I will just get one screen computer. So don't overcomplicate things. If something has to be very simple, there is one or two clicks user have to do, just go with that instead of them doing 10 clicks to go into something or touching 10 buttons to get the results. Overcomplicated things will fail. No matter how innovative the technology is, it's just the acceptance. So it's touching back to acceptance of that technology. Then, if somebody I made a diabetic device, again, since we picked up diabetes for discussion. I made a diabetic device and I went to a hospital and said, you know what, this is an excellent diabetic uh, machinery piece of instrument. Would you put it on? They say, yeah, we will love to. But if it is taking too much for them to train people, it's too complicated. The software is very glitchy, or the software is too complicated, or it's dependent on third party. Because if the third party stops their shop of selling that software, my device is gone. So dependency is also important. So create something which is independent, you can control, you don't have to train much, you don't have many touch points. That's the, I would say, the discovery phase. Now on the point of saying, developmental phase. Um, I would just say on that, which actually we personally have also failed, and we didn't start, and we went through the same grind. And I hope listening to this podcast, people will take some points and not do the same mistakes which we did. um, Communication with your team. When R&D team develops something, as I said start of this conversation, there will be deviation from your what you have thought in an experiment. There will be deviations. But if that communication is not carried from a technical person to the head of the department, it's gonna go array. So have a very clear communication with your team, saying, "Hey, I did this, and I saw this results. Should we rethink about it? Should we change the procedure?" So have your stop points for meetings. Have regular meetings with your staff. Update everybody. That's the failure point. If you don't have that, and head of R&D is thinking everything is going fine, and the technicians and the workers are doing their own thing, it's a miscommunication. It's not going to go anywhere. And then again, once you change anything, now, for example, I developed this diabetics instrument, and the idea I had initially was to integrate with Wi-Fi, for example, and it didn't go well. My Wi-Fi is not working, so it's a challenge. So I brought this to a team and said, you know what, my Wi-Fi is not working. And somebody said, well, use an SD card. We don't need Wi-Fi. Let's put all the data in SD card. We don't need to connect it to Wi-Fi. I will now go back to the manufacturer and say, hey, you know what, I had this change in my design. Will you be still able to make it? Because you have to talk to every stakeholder which will be in that product. Otherwise, you will again think this will be, yeah, this is SD card. It's not a big change. What if you're the electrical breadboard who makes your bedboards, the electrical components? They say, well, the design doesn't fit. It's not gonna work. Then again, you waste time and effort. So be very communicative with with your team, with your stakeholders. Clearly put your challenges out and see the solutions are compatible with manufacturing. And again, the supply chain. If I want to get SD cards, can I get them in millions? Will I be able to ultimately get those SD cards in millions? So these are some of the challenges we have faced, and I would want people or the listeners to understand that communication in any relationship, professional or your personal, is the key. So communicate with your team, and I hope this helps. Yeah.
No, thank you. It's actually yeah, extremely insightful. And this is like it's great to get like feedback from experience, like things that you didn't go do like the right way, to try to see like how you can basically improve that and advise also to do a better job. So that's great to get the feedback here. If we focus on, okay, so we have the product has been developed. um, a big thing within like medical device environment is really like the regulation and how to get validated, certified. So can you just like touch on like that specific step of the process?
There are different ways onto how people get approvals for medical devices. So if you're talking FDA, Health Canada, there are longer routes and shorter routes. So 510K is one of the shortest route that people take, but it is also important for for taking 510K. You need to have a predicate, meaning that you need to have a device that is very, very similar to your device in terms of composition, in terms of intended use, in terms of safety and efficacy. Many things should match to your device. So maybe not everybody has a predicate. So the second route is PMA, pre-market approval path, which is a longer route to FDA, and it is for the devices. Those are not. There is no predicate for those devices. I would say these are the devices those are introduced in the market first time, and these devices take around 10 to 15 years to go into the market, a very long route. So to now, because of our experience, because we have worked in this space, there are I would say bypasses to getting things to the market, and one of them, which we have already used for one of our products, is a lab developed test. So you introduce a product as a lab developed test. You do not introduce as a manufactured product. You do not directly go to regulatory approval. You introduce slowly at a lab scale. So it is a smaller scale release of that product. So in US and Canada, there are two different landscapes of releasing LDTs. So in US, you have to collaborate with clear certified labs in order to release an LDT. And in Canada, you have to collaborate with provincial labs, like because in here we have provincially certified labs across Canada. So you will collaborate with provincial labs and then you will release your device. So when we say LDT, it is only to be used under that lab environment and not to be used everywhere. So that is a restriction of that LDT device. And then once you have an LDT device, you have a data, you can use that data and you can go for FDA or Health Canada approval. Again, it won't be a fastest approval. It will take time, but because you already have safety and efficacy proven by launching it as an LDT, it would be much faster than the regular PMA route.
Yeah, makes sense. That's really the three different option. Do you advise those that last option based on the type of product that startups do and manufacture, or does it depend on the product type, or is that like pretty an advice that is pretty more general for any type of medical device?
I would say it just depends on type of medical device that you are trying to make. It is all case by case because all these devices are so specialized in their own way that you will have to kind of think around these three ways which would best fit you. And if you talk specifically about LDTs, again, it is not a very simple, straightforward pathway. There might be restraints in terms of which labs you would approach to and how much they can do also. So it's all case by case specific.
And Jeremy, if you may, I will add a point here. So the medical device field, or the medical, you know field itself, is evolving. It has changed shape, structure, forms. So from actual physical device, there is a lot of now technologies which are electronic, and there's a different approach when it comes to software and all these e-health products. So you really have to look at what product it is. First of all, differentiation between a physical product, invasive product, non-invasive product, something which goes into your body or which doesn't go into your body. So that's the differentiation, where you have to see it's a class one, class two, depending on which class it falls under regulatory. And then it's also a business decision, to be honest. Business decision is, how do you want to create your brand? Do you want to create your brand by going full-fledged and or globally launching this product as FDA approved, Health Canada approved, CE approved product, or you want to soft launch it locally just to see if your technology is working or not, without making much bigger, because you can make a bigger bang and get bigger perks, but it's a bigger failure also, because if your name is tainted as a startup, you're done. So you can do a small soft launch as an LDT to your local community, get the data, get the feedback from the user, because you can still salvage the situation, go back to your R&D and D and modify if something is not working. Change that and again launch it. So LDT actually gives you a window of improvement, if there is any, or your own trust and confidence into your own technology, that it is accepted by your local community. And then you can extrapolate that to different communities, different provinces, whole nation, and across the borders. So you really have to think what risks and how much risk you want to take, and if your technology is LDT or not. Because if it is software, then you need to have different HEPA compliant or PIPA compliant products, which has a different path. So really evaluate, talk to your regulatory compliance officer, talk to regulatory lawyers. There are services out there. So if not, in Alberta, where we are from, there are programs which will provide you funding to have this consultation, and this cost is covered by certain funding agencies. I'm not sure about US, but look for it. If you don't have money, but approach people, talk to people. Networking is very important. As I said, communication. Talk to people. There is always somebody who is out there to help you, and they will guide you much better. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's really to try to keep that agile approach where you learn fast from the customer, and you take into consideration like their feedback, their complaint pretty early in the process, where that can improve like the development of the product. So yeah, it makes sense on going that way. What did you see like, which are like the main cause of failure for startups that want to go through the regulation and fail this regulation step?
So I think the main failure would be when you are when you have made a product and then you think you're ready and then you have given it to regulatory authorities, but you're not you haven't done your due diligence and you failed somewhere in safety and efficacy. That's what we call recalls by FDA. I would say recalls is one of the toughest thing for any startup, and it's pretty bad for even the bigger companies, because recalls, you have to recall each and every single product, and then it's a it's a huge amount of work and huge amount of money that company has to invest in recalling. And again, when you are on that list of recall products on an FDA list, it is second time the FDA is more cautious of giving you any kind of approval. So I would say safety and efficacy is the priority of FDA. So make sure that you have your device safety and efficacy are the priority while you're building it throughout the developmental phase. Second thing is sometimes we kind of misunderstand the classification of the device where we tend to fail. You submit a submission and you are classifying it as a class 2 device. You have done your general controls and other QMS submissions based on class 2, but FDA or Health Canada thinks that it is class 3. So again, going back to doing your due diligence, that make sure your product classification is correct so that you're not going back in the circles of the FDA and Health Canada. And having a predicate, if your predicate is wrong, all your processes are going to be everything is going to be at the risk because your predicate is wrong, and then FDA is going to come back to you with their analysis, and I would say it's a wastage of your time and your resources. So make sure that your predicate is chosen rightly, and you are doing a proper head-to-head comparison with your predicate. That is what FDA would need from you if you are going with 510K route. And then managing your regulatory pathways. We have to be sure, like sometimes people think that like companies, startup companies think that, oh, we're going to get approvals in 9 months or 1 year or so. But are you sure that you have applied under 510K? Is your product is your device compliant, or is your can your device be classified under 510K, or is it a PMA route? I mean, that creates a lot of confusion, and that creates a lot of kind of misunderstanding, and that is something that leads to a failure where you have an
Mm.
expectation that you're getting an approval in 6 to 12 months, and then you are getting a feedback from FDA that your product is a PMA product and it is going to take 10 years. That is a big disappointment for any startup company. So having a clear understanding early on where your product would fall. Is it PMA? Is it de novo? Is it 510K? So those things are to be made clear early on.
Yeah, because funding, yeah, I mean, the funding that you requires, depending on the type of certification and the type of the development process, is directly impacted. So it's really important to get those right.
Yes.
Okay, so let's jump on the last really like step. You get like your regulatory approval. You ready to. I mean, you I guess like what's the last step? Like the manufacturing.
Yeah, and that's my favorite one, because there are reasons, two reasons. Basically, that means you're end of your line, and you can relax a little bit that you have made to manufacturing after regulatory approvals, and it is a testament to the whole team, that their hard work, their thinking, and their communication has paid off, and that's why it's my favorite, because it kind of gives the whole team an assurance that your ideas are worth, and you're going to make it big. So manufacturing, as I said, it is a circle. We started with a discovery phase where you are talking to manufacturers and seeing your idea is scalable or not. Now you have a product which should be scalable. So during this journey, your product has morphed and modified because you started with an idea. In R&D you had challenges, so you changed the design, you changed the buttons, you changed the texture of the material. And at every point, if you're talking to your manufacturer and updating them and they're saying yes, we can do, then you don't have any challenges in manufacturing because you have taken care of them during that journey. The problem comes when you haven't done that. Then you're in a deep trouble because now you don't want to spend another 2 3 years 4 years developing this product because the manufacturer. So the struggle begins. Now you're finding manufacturer who can do what you developed. So it's a very different way of You're just saying, hey, I have a nail now, I need to find a hammer. You're going reverse. So I would refrain from doing that. I would recommend anybody who's listening not to do that. Be communicative with your manufacturers. Your manufacturers have a lot of experience dealing with a lot of products, and that experience is translational. What I mean by that is, if I'm developing a orthopedic product, and now somebody came as diabetes, maybe there is a component which I can think, oh, I did in that project, I modified that machine like that, I can do the same thing here. So they will guide you how you can save some money when you're doing scale up. And that's very important. Second thing is, you developed a product, always pay attention throughout your R&D that it's a high throughput product. Now let me give an example. I can, you go to, any pizza shop. What do? You place an order, they tell you to wait for 10, 15 minutes. That's a maximum they tell you to wait, right? And your pizza is ready and you go. That's high throughput. That you haven't planned. You just appeared there and you gave an order, 15 minutes, which is not inconvenient to you. You got your pizza. Now think of this scenario where you went to a pizza shop and pizza shop says, you know what? It's going to take you 1.5 hours or 3 hours. I think your answer will be, you know what? I'm just going to change my food. I'm not going to go for pizza today. So you really have to understand, if your technology is high throughput, your if you develop something which requires more time for manufacturer to do it, they will say, you know what? Thank you for your business. Please find somebody else. And now you're hopping manufacturer to manufacturer, trying to see who will manufacture my product. Even though your technology is done, is prototyped, everything is done, now years and years you're just waiting for some manufacturer to make it. So you lost your time, you lost your window to launch that product into the market. So please think of technologies which are high throughput and scalable. So these are two different things. So you can put the design file to the manufacturer, and manufacturer can say, hey, you know what, I can make 1 million pieces in 4 months. After 4 months, it's on your shelf. Once you're done with 1 million pieces, you come back again. So you're not occupying manufacturer for the whole year. You just did only 3 months, made your batch for a whole year, and you're done. So that's another thing which you should be focused on. um, I would say, another piece of advice which I have for people who are listening in here will be, for when you're making your product, or you're providing your files to manufacturer. Um, Please explain them the breakpoints of your manufacturing, because you will be providing them the file and they will say, okay, step number one is to take this piece, step number two is join them XYZ. It's like Lego pieces you're making. They might recommend you a different shortcut to eliminate few steps, which is actually good for you. You will save some money. So be open to those suggestions. Don't be stubborn just because you made the product. You have to go through that pathway. Manufacturers might have easy way to do achieve the same goal, but with less steps. So that's important, because the more time you save on manufacturing, the less money you pay. And I think, yeah, I think for manufacturing, if you are at the manufacturing, as I said, beginning of this stage, you are you should celebrate. You are there, you have made it. Congratulations to you. It's time to reap the rewards. And yeah, I think that will be my 2 cents on manufacturing.
Yeah, because as you say before, like typically, before going through the regulation, you should have uh, talk with your manufacturer. You should have make sure that the design and prototype that you planning to apply for the regulation is manufacturable. This is more like down the line, what's the different steps, like to make that product like 1 million type of parts
Yeah,
ready to be shipped, and etc. etc. So it's good to.
absolutely. And Jeremy, one of the important things which we kind of missed, and I'm glad you brought it up. FDA or health agencies or regulatory bodies, they do want name of your manufacturer. You cannot submit your application without identifying your manufacturer, and that's very critical. That's why you have to communicate, or at least have one or two manufacturers listed out, that if one manufacturer's machine is down, your whole business is not gone. You can
Mhm.
shift. So always create backups. um, I'm in Canada, and I can have one manufacturer in Canada, another in US, because if I'm supplying to hospitals and my Canadian manufacturer's machine is gone, I can still fulfill my orders through my US. I can activate that. So that comes with experience. That I'm not saying everybody will know everything from start, but our goal here is to at least give them a platform, give them some substance to work on, so that the mistakes we have made through our journey, they don't do that. They have that well planned out, and we wish everybody, all the listeners, very well.
Thank you so much to both of you to share that those great feedback on the different steps, like needed to go through the development of a medical device. Do you have any last recommendation to share with our audience to make sure that they go through that process like pretty easily, and yeah, any last recommendation?
From my end, I would say, as Raman said, you don't, nail and hammer equation. So be sure that the product is needed by the market. And at the same time, again, one more thing that researchers have in their mind: make the most innovative product. No, maybe not. Just make a simple product which people need, and a simple product which FDA would understand, and a simple product which is safe, and at the same time has a efficacy for the patient, and can make patients' lives better. Have a very clear understanding of your regulatory pathway and your QMS. Very very important. That is most neglected part is documentation, paperwork, QMS. Very very important. That has to be think from the beginning of the project. I would say your paper trail should start from ideation till the end. So very important point that you maintain all your QMS documentation properly.
Yeah, I will say, be ready to pull your hair, lose your appetite, be angry and grumpy all the time, and welcome to entrepreneurship. But jokes apart, I mean, entrepreneurs are a different breed, for sure. Um, Everybody cannot be from that breed. People who are passionate, people who want to change and have an impact on this world, they embark on this journey. And that's very important, because you will need patience. You will need that sturdiness, that when things go wrong, when things are not going your way, you will still stand up. You will still stand up, not for you, but for your team. The team is looking for, towards you, looking up. So this is very critical. What Sumrita also explained, that doing this, the path we described, this will make it a little bit easy. I won't say it will solve everything. It will make it easy. If you have your checkpoints, you have your all the ducks in the row. It will make. And I would say my mantra is communication. Talk to all the stakeholders who are involved. Your team is also a stakeholder, your manufacturers, your regulatory bodies, from get go, because essentially they will make it easy for you. They will tell you what they're looking for. If you talk to FDA and they say this is what we're looking for, then you have your answer. You don't have to struggle thinking what should I present, because they're telling you what they want. Same thing with manufacturers, same thing with when you're going to VCs and investors. They want to see their return on invest, and they will tell you typically what value they're looking, how you should present them. So end of your journey, do make your pitch decks, practice with your team, be confident. Don't be taken back if you get a negative feedback. It's going to happen, but take it as a constructive. Look what gaps they are saying. Maybe you're not communicating in the same term and language the way they want to hear. So integrate that with your pitch decks, integrate that with your communications. Your network is your net worth. So use that. You go out, talk to everybody you know. They will open up. The people are nice. People will help you. So I think that's my 2 cents.
Thank you so much. What's the best way to get in touch with you guys? If anyone want to get in touch with you guys.
So, Conlis Global, you can reach us by URL, www.conlisglobal.com. And we have all ways to reach us. There is a form you can submit to reach us with specific queries if you are looking for services, or you want to be an investor, or you want to contribute towards R&D. You can fill in that form. If you are in orthopedic, which our product is, you're a surgeon and you want to be on advisory board, there is a form for that. And we have feedbacks. I'm looking towards people engaging. I love that. Engagement is key. Building ecosystem is a key. So we have all the phone numbers there. We'll be happy to answer any questions and help anybody who needs.
Thank you so much for both of you guys. Thank you so much for taking the time to share your this feedback. Yeah, really appreciate.
It was a pleasure, Jeremy.
Thank you so much, Jeremy, for the opportunity. We look forward to having more interviews with you in future.
With for sure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jeremy.